Today, we're really getting into something important, a major blind spot, you could say, in adult mental health.
That's right.
We're looking at the impact of late-identified autism spectrum disorder, ASD, specifically on women, particularly when they're juggling the huge demands of being a wife and a mother.
It's absolutely crucial because, for decades, autism research and the diagnostics that came from it were seen almost entirely through let's call it a male-centric lens.
Right.
And that meant the way autism often presents in females, which can be more subtle, more internalized, it just got missed, routinely missed, even by things like the DSM-5.
Okay, let's start right there then, because the cost of that, the immediate cost, sounds enormous. Our sources talk a lot about this thing called social camouflaging or masking. What exactly is the long-term price of keeping up that facade?
Well, masking is this huge effort, sometimes conscious, sometimes not, to basically hide your natural autistic traits, to try and mimic neurotypical behavior. And the research is clear, this isn't just tiring. It comes with an immense cognitive and emotional cost. It leads straight to chronic exhaustion and this concept of a masking debt.
Masking debt, I like that term.
Yeah, it's this debt you build up over years, sometimes decades. And that's often why women only seek a diagnosis when they finally hit a breaking point as adults.
And that breaking point, it sounds like it's often triggered when they step into these big family roles, like marriage and motherhood.
Exactly. The stress of masking, which they've maybe managed okay before, suddenly collides with all these new demands.
And then they get misdiagnosed.
It very often. Professionals might see anxiety or depression, maybe OCD. They treat those surface symptoms but miss the underlying neurodiversity completely.
Okay, let's break down the roles. What about the autistic wife? The key issue seems to be a communication mismatch.
That's a big one. You see, typical relationships often rely a lot on unspoken things. Body language, tone, sarcasm, reading between the lines.
Implicit cues.
Right. But for an autistic partner, communication generally needs to be much more direct, literal, explicit.
That need for clarity makes sense, but then doesn't asking for that constant explicit explanation just put all the work on the neurotypical partner? Like they have to do all the translating.
It definitely creates what some call an invisible work of translation. Yeah. But it's really important to see it through the lens of the double empathy problem.
Right. Explain that a bit.
It means the communication breakdown isn't just a deficit in one person. It's a mutual misunderstanding between two different ways of processing the world, two different neurotypes.
So it goes both ways.
Exactly. Success means both partners need to shift. They need to replace the guesswork with clear, structured, literal language. Like, instead of saying, I wish you were more affectionate, which is vague.
You'd say
something really specific, like, could we make sure to hug before we go to sleep each night?
Got it. Okay, let's shift gears to the autistic mother. Here, the stress seems less about the one-on-one communication and more about just overwhelm.
Yeah.
System overload.
Yes. The sources call it a cumulative demand crisis. Motherhood is relentless, right? It's 200/7, and it's full of unpredictable sensory input.
Like noise, constant catching, visual clutter.
Sleep deprivation, smells, you name it. It just bombards the nervous system, pushing it into what's called chronic sensory hyperarousal.
Like living next to a noisy building site all the time.
Kinda, yeah. Your system never really gets to rest and reset. And then you layer on the huge demands on executive functioning, EF.
Planning, organizing, switching tasks.
All that stuff. And since EF challenges affect, maybe up to 80% of autistic people, this clash between the demands of parenting and their own processing style makes burnout almost inevitable.
Okay, you mentioned burnout. Let's define autistic burnout more clearly. What does that actually look like?
It's described as this really profound state of exhaustion. It comes directly from that sustained effort of masking and coping. And crucially, it often leads to a functional regression, meaning skills they usually have might temporarily disappear. They might seem and feel significantly more autistic, less able to manage things they normally could.
And that drop in function must then really impact the marriage too, right? Like a crisis multiplier.
Absolutely. It adds another layer of stress to the relationship. And we should also mention, this isn't just happening in a vacuum. There's a wider context.
A one.
It's sometimes called the quadruple empathy problem. This idea adds in the impact of systemic bias, even medical misogyny.
How so?
It means the autistic woman often has to fight incredibly hard just to be heard, to get support for herself or accommodations for her kids in school. That self-advocacy is exhausting in itself. It drains even more energy.
Wow. Okay, that paints a tough picture.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not all challenges. What about the strengths? What unique benefits do autistic women bring to these roles?
Oh, definitely. They often excel at creating really stable, predictable home environments. That comes from a strength in consistency and structure. Think reliable routines for meals, bedtime. That's huge for kids.
That makes sense. What else?
Often a very analytical, problem-solving approach. They might tackle domestic challenges in a really logical, effective way. And maybe most importantly, their own lived experience can fuel this incredibly deep empathy and advocacy for their children, especially if their kids are also neurodivergent.
The fierce protectiveness born from understanding.
Exactly. So to support these strengths, the approach has to be neuroaffirming. It can't be about trying to fix them.
So practical strategies for the relationship.
Neurodiverse couples counseling can be great, but it has to focus on acceptance and building those direct, literal communication skills together.
And for managing the home and the EF challenges.
Things like visual supports charts, lists, using technology like phone alarms and calendar reminders can be lifesavers for organization and task management.
And managing that sensory overload we talked about.
That's critical. Modifying the environment helps reducing clutter, maybe using softer lighting. But a key thing is often creating a designated safe space.
Like a quiet zone.
Yeah, a space they can retreat to when overwhelmed. Maybe using noise-canceling headphones, low-light, comfy textures. Just somewhere to decompress from the daily sensory storm.
So the main takeaway here isn't trying to make autistic women normal.
Not at all. It's about creating accommodations and neuroaffirming environments so they can thrive sustainably. It's about changing the environment, not the person. Support, not suppression.
Okay, that brings us to a final thought for you, our listener. We've talked about the huge energy drain just from self-advocacy fighting for understanding within medical and school systems. So thinking about that, what single specific policy change or maybe an institutional shift do you think could most effectively reduce that burden on neurodivergent women? What change would free up their energy and cognitive resources for those vital family roles? Something to consider.
Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you.